provide funding for various special programs that would have been voter approved. The expenditures and the costs associated with the provisions of the the city's budget are divided into multiple categories. But the largest category in which we spend money in is personnel costs. So there's about 53%? I can't see. 53% of all of the city's expenditures are in personnel costs, which takes up, that's more than half of all of our revenues in terms of how things are allocated. So that poses a big challenge when you have a large deficit on what to cut if you're trying to maintain jobs and services that the people who are in those jobs perform. So we have a smaller amount of money to adjust for whenever we're in situations such as these where there's a large deficit. The city, my finance team and the city starts the budgetary process in late September, but we start a public process in February. The Budget Advisory Committee goes out to the residents and does a poll to see what are the things that the community is looking for within the budget in the next biennial. Then in March, our council will do a retreat and provide their priorities about what it is that they are looking for. And then in April, the finance department puts out a 5-year forecast, which is an additional update on the revenue projections for the next 5 years to give us a better baseline of revenues and what we're projecting from. And then in May, the mayor proposes a budget. So in between February and May, we're gathering priorities from the council, priorities from the community, and revenue projections to come up with and working with the departments and department directors to understand what are the needs that you have and how can we achieve balance, knowing what our revenues are and understanding the priorities that everyone wants. How can we meet all of those within the revenue constraints that we have? So during that process, the mayor has meetings with the department heads and develops her priorities, takes in all the information, and then in May 1st proposes a balanced budget. So taking all of those things into consideration and then turns that balanced budget or balanced plan over to the council. The council can then make amendments to her balanced plan. And now we're in the phase where the budget has been presented to the council, and the council can take feedback and make amendments to that, ultimately leading to a adopted budget, hopefully by June 30th when the fiscal year ends. So how did we get in this historic deficit? We said we started at $360 million. The tail starts with revenue. We've had, in the past 2 years during the pandemic, the federal government provided most governmental entities with ARPA dollars, money to help us get through the pandemic. And at the end of this fiscal year that we're currently in, those dollars run out. So as we're projecting for the next fiscal year, we don't have the subsidy from the federal government to help sustain our revenues as we have in the past 2 years. And so that's one of the biggest issues in this historic deficit. The other tail of the revenue loss is that the economy has changed. As the Federal Reserve has changed the interest rates, that have a direct effect on real estate transfer tax, which is our second highest revenue in the general purpose fund. So when the interest rates rise, it is intended to bring prices down and slow down the housing market, and it has had that effect. But that effect has a twofold effect on our real estate transfer tax. There's less houses sold, and the value in which they're sold is lower, and then hence it brings in less revenue for the city. So the loss of federal dollars, the economy changing with the interest rate effect has had a significant effect on our revenue projections and our revenue collections, or our anticipated revenue collections for the next year. Additionally, transit occupancy tax, and that is the tax that people pay when they come to visit. They stay in hotels, rent cars. Some travel has come back since the pandemic, but not all of it has come back. Oakland generally has more business travelers than tourist travelers, and we haven't seen business travel come back as robustly before the pandemic. So when you have all of those things, on the revenue side, we have decreased revenue um, for the next 2 years, but our expenditures haven't been decreased as much. So when we say there's a deficit, it is the revenue projections are lower and the expenditures are a tad bit higher. And that's how we get to the 360 million. When the mayor approached this budget, she wanted to use specific principles to guide the city department directors, the finance department, and how do we put this budget together so that we can honor the community. And those are centering on equity, valuing city workforce, and strategic innovative thinking. So when we say centering equity, it's ensuring that we are providing resources across the city of Oakland equitably to all the different communities in which they lived on historical disparities. Task force. So it is the city of Oakland that perform the services that make sure that things are getting done. If we approach the budget where there are layoffs, then we know that we can't deliver those services. So one of her core values was that we do not still thinking. How can the departments be more innovative? How can the city be more innovative to provide efficient and effective services to you all with less resources or the same resources that we've had previously? So as the mayor says, One Oakland, in our One Oakland budget process, we are approaching with smart fiscal planning, leveraging the creativity and the commitment of public servants who work in the government in close partnership with the city council. So the mayor took into consideration what the city council's priorities were and tried to align her deliverables with the city council priorities. And she also wanted to leverage creativity. So the creativity and the innovative and the best practices that the department directors have to bring about more efficient and effective government. And then just smart planning. So bringing in new revenue or pre-planning. So previously to this budget, there was Measure T. There were several measures that all helped us. Measure T was one of aggressive business tax. And so with the passage of that, planning for these coming up years, there was $20 million created by Measure T. So it helped to offset some of the diminishing revenue that we knew we would have. Next slide. Our realignments are homelessness services from the current HSD into the Department of Housing. So making 3 different department reorgs and combining services that are that provide sit and delivering the services to the residents, to the people who need it. Another integration was in the economic and workforce development into the planning department. So bringing synergy in the full development cycle. We're planning for development business and development to come into the city. Combine the economic, the outreach,